All right, for this video, let's look at our next post here. This one is specifically going to deal with selecting your graphic novel for the class. Now, first of all, I want to say that if you are able to, you are more than willing, I am more than willing to let you go pick a graphic novel of your own choosing. Digital, real, in your hand, whatever that might be. The only catch is, because of the short time frame, you really would need to have it before the end of this week. Now, for some of you, that may or may not be something that's doable. So, to help you out a little bit, I am linking here to the actual graphic novel selection list I have, and I want to talk about it. I'm just going to skim over this, and I want to get down here. I've got some things here that are hyperlinked, and I've got a place that we can go where you can access the ones that, most of the ones I have here that are hyperlinked. Now, right off the bat, there is one that's automatically linked on this page, and that is this one right here, Will Eisner's Last Day in Vietnam. I happen to have a PDF copy of this, so if you wanted to read and do your research surrounding this graphic novel, you're in luck. I happen to have a copy right here. Okay, but most of these, you'll see if I click on them, this is actually 2 volumes. It will actually take you to Amazon. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go buy it on Amazon, but Amazon provides a really good starting point for us when it comes to thinking about what is this graphic novel about. Now, if you wanted to actually access these graphic novels I have listed here, that's what the instructions down here about ComiXology. We'll go look at that in a second, because I have most of these, I have these down there available for you to read via the ComiXology system. So before I get to that though, let me talk about why I have these linked to, say, Amazon. Because in order to understand what you're getting yourself into, it's probably a really good idea that you take a moment and actually look at what is this graphic novel about, okay? So the reason I like to use Amazon, for one, easy bibliographic information is here, but it's also on ComiXology. But scrolling down here, I can read reviews. I can read detailed information about this graphic novel, okay? Most of them, I can read reviews. I can read what other people have said about it, and get a general, start forming a general impression about whether this is something. In fact, I can even go down here and find out more about the writers and the artists, and figure out if this is something that I want to commit to. Because you don't want to simply judge it based purely on its title. I'll give you an example. I had a student who chose a graphic novel called Black Hole based only on its title. It was not what he thought it was about. It's because he didn't look a little bit more closely at it. All right. So what we're going to do before you make your selection by the end of this week, you're going to be asked to perhaps look at several of these. And again, you can go outside this list completely. Perhaps look at several of these before you even go to ComiXology. Look over some of these titles and get an idea for what these graphic novels are about, who the writers are. Get some feel for them, and maybe look at a couple of them. And then slowly narrow down your list, because what you're actually going to be doing, and we'll have a video talking more about this preliminary research process, is you're going to need to look at these graphic novels that are available to you here. And as I said, you can go beyond these. You'll see a lot of these are superhero, because ComiXology gives me access to a lot of superhero ones. But there are some examples of ones that are a little bit outside. For example, Wizard of Oz by Scotty Young. This is an adaptation of the L. Frank Baum book. Okay, so there's that. That's outside that. We have one, Nat Turner, which is about the slave revolt. So, you know, March book 1, which is on here somewhere. That's also, so there's a little bit of things. There's a lot of superhero stuff, but there is some stuff that blends outside of that. But like I said, before you commit, you need to basically get a feeling for what these books are about, because when you pick these, you're going to be picking a graphic novel that you're going to be with for the rest of this class. It's what you're going to be basing and centering your research paper on, okay? And so you'll see down here, I've got a bunch of these. Now, and so I want you to start here with this process. make a list, about 5 of these, 5 that look interesting, and then go through them. For example, here, Black Science. You could go down here. You could read more about it. You might get a general idea. You can get an idea about who the writer is. You can get an idea of people who've read it and looked at it. See how they felt. What do they say? You want to form some opinions, and from these opinions, you will then hopefully narrow down your selection. This one's a personal favorite of mine, March, book 1. This is about the civil rights movement. So you'll see here, they've even got stuff here from a school library journal. They've got really good, nice stuff. And these are really starting points, because ultimately you may want to go beyond simply this Amazon list. For example, if I was thinking about March book 1, but I feel like Amazon didn't give me enough, I might go in here and type March book 1 reviews and see what kind of reviews are out there. Okay, so if I scroll down here, here's an MPR, Goodreads, New York Times. You won't necessarily always find these for all of them, but this one's a very well-known one. But I could read a couple of reviews and get it and start really form a strong impression about whether this is something I want to commit to, because as I said, you're going to need to make that commitment. Now, let's say once you've made your selection, the next ask is, all right, if you don't have the ability to go out and purchase it on your own or get access to it in a timely fashion, you may ask yourself, okay, well, how do I read it? For example, let's say if I want to do Civil War, and let's say I don't have a comic book shop near me. Now, if you're in Charleston or Columbia, I know there are some, but like again said, you may not have the time. I have provided you a way, and I've got some screen captures here. So let me walk you through the process here. Now, the screen capture below basically screen captures how to operate yourself around this site. I'm going to log out just to sort of so we can go through the whole process. So if you go to ComiXology.com, you're going to end up, I'm just going to, no, come back. All right, so if I just go to ComiXology.com, I'm going to end up on a page like this. All right, and so that's the screen capture I have here. I'm going to go to the right-hand corner. You'll see I have a little screen capture. Log in. Okay. I'm going to click on and it says here, click on the Amazon sign-in box. So you'll see I'm on this page. I'm going to click on this. Now, for me, it automatically has it so that I can go ahead and just input it without even having to worry about it. But for purposes of you, I have provided you with the username and email. So here's the email address you'll plug in. Here is the password. Be aware that it is case sensitive. Okay. Once you have logged in, you will be on my account. You will go to my books. Okay. You'll see that I have this here. I recommend that you go down once you're in here. You're going to see a lot of stuff. I recommend that you hit Browse Library. And then I recommend that you click on Books rather than Series. Now, as you'll see, some of these are individual comics. For example, even though this isn't on the list, that's a collection of stories. You'll see, for example, this is a single comic book. In my 101 class, we use this. Now, this All New Captain America Volume 1, this is a graphic novel. The easiest way to tell this, for example, is if I click on this right here, okay, I will easily be able to tell based purely on the page browsing. So you'll see here, if I browse all the pages, it doesn't go beyond page 35, 36, okay? That's pretty standard for a comic book, okay? It wouldn't go over 40 pages. Now, if I click on the graphic novel, and I do the same thing, and I go down here and I click on the browse, I should extensively go much further, okay? So you'll see here, this one pushes more into the 70, maybe even further here. It should go further. This one is actually a collection of comic books, but you'll see it pushes much more late. This is what I'm talking about. You want to pick one of these with a longer page limit because you want a more fuller story. So you'll have to look at these a little bit closely. For example, this one's a single issue. That's a single issue. Now this volume 1, this is a graphic novel. That's a single issue, graphic novel. Usually if it says volume, oftentimes. Avengers Forever, Rage of Ultron. I've got quite a few here, and they're in alphabetical order. So Black Panther, this is an individual issue. This is a volume. So you'll see that there are 2 volumes of this, and I also had the individual issues. So make sure that you're reading a graphic novel selected, okay? So just double check the page length. And if you go by what I have on the list, they should roughly match up here, okay? You'll see Guardians of the Galaxy #1, but here's the volume 1 that includes it. Okay. And as I said, I do apologize. There are quite a few of these that are superhero based. But for example, Pax Romana right here, this is actually more of a science fiction time travel one. So if you're interested in something a little bit different, I apologize that I don't have more to offer you here choice-wise. I wish I did. But yeah, and of course I have Roman Rebel, the Margaret Sanger story. Okay. So there is some stuff here. So make sure that you are selecting a graphic novel. Okay. And I've tried to provide as best choice as I can. All right, now once you have made this selection, and you'll see here, I have a really detailed list here of all kinds of graphic novels that are potentially up for grabs or you might want to look into. So if you have the time, it's an Excel sheet you can look at. But ultimately, what you need to do is you need to have made your selection by the end of this week. So this is something you need to be working on. So use the hyperlinks here. Start thinking about what the graphic novel you want to do. And then once you've made that decision, you need to go into ComiXology, log in, start reading, start taking notes, okay? Because eventually this is what you're going to be doing your research paper on. So first things you need to do to start with, and if you look over here in the new deadline section, you'll see right there next Sunday, you're going to need to post in Moodle your selection. When you post in Moodle your selection, that doesn't mean that you've just started. It means you should already be reading it, okay? So that you guys can get this done. And once you've got into the graphic novel and once you've read it, taken notes, you can start moving on and we can start getting into report 1, which will involve you summarizing the graphic novel and analyzing it. So you will end up returning to it several times. And if you want to go ahead and get a copy of the graphic novel for yourself and read the one on ComiXology while you wait, I have no problem with that, however you want to do that. But like I said, I've done this to try and make it as easy as availability to you as possible at this time. So if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But hopefully this is something you'll go ahead and get started on right away.